Welcome to No Story Stagnates with me, Ernie Boxall. And if you're watching this, I suggest you go and switch off all your electrical goods, all your kettles, all your washing machines, all your refrigerators, because we're going to be interviewing a woman with so much electricity in her body that will probably blow the system. Ladies and gentlemen, AnnSee Yeoh. AnnSee, will you tell everyone who you are, where you are, what you're doing at the moment?
So thank you. I don't know about the electricity, but my name's AnnSee Yeoh, and I'm currently based in the southwest of England, kind of between Bristol and Bath. I'm originally from Malaysia, and what I'm all about is helping to transform and empower people through the power of yoga so that they live healthful lives.
Good.
So that's what I'm about.
And what are you doing at the moment, AnnSee, to do that?
So we have lots of different tools, or I always tend to say that I see them as tools in my toolbox. We have a yoga studio in the beautiful Chew Valley. We train yoga teachers all around the UK and abroad as well, because I believe in the ripple effect, so that if I can, there's only one of me, but if I can inspire people to do the same, then we are going to change more lives. And you know, I've got online courses, and I do workshops, and pre-COVID used to run retreats, and we'll move back to running retreats as well in the future. So those are the key ways that we tend to do it. We also help people with their health from the inside out, also with a company called Arbonne.
I've heard of Arbonne, yeah. And have you done much traveling with your work at the moment, AnnSee? Or in the past, have you done much traveling?
Yes, I have. So I've traveled quite a lot, actually. So actually another tool that I have is I do some freelance training for a company, international company, called Les Mills. And so with Les Mills, and also with my work in the fitness industry, I've done a lot of traveling. I was just talking to someone just before this call about jet lag, you know. And I think there was one year I flew to Taiwan. I used to fly to Taiwan. I would land on a Friday, go straight into rehearsals, teaching all weekend, leave Sunday night. I'll be back in the UK by Friday. I've done New Zealand in exactly 7 days before, literally for land, work, leave, come back to the UK. So I've done quite a bit of traveling for work throughout Europe, Asia, and a little bit in the US, not much.
Right. So if we put on the indicator, air miles AnnSee.
Oh, a lot.
A lot.
A lot. I mean, you know, if you take into consideration that my family live in the Southeast Asia.
Of course.
So, you know, having been here as a student, I used to travel back, you know, to see family as well. So
well, we'll come into all of that, AnnSee.
Yeah.
So, the first question is, AnnSee, do you know how your mother and father met?
Yes, much as they would tell me, they're a bit secretive, I think, with coming from a Chinese family with things like that. But they're both from the same, I don't know if village is the right word to use. But if I think back in time, it probably was, but then now, since I was a child, it's probably a suburb of Kuala Lumpur, whereas when they were children, it was probably a village. So they grew up in the same area, and it was a village, it was very small. And, you know, so they kind of knew each other from there. And then I think my dad approached my mum and asked her out for a night out. And in those days, it's just, let's just go out for some food, really.
Yes.
And that was it. But they had to walk. They were not allowed to hold hands
Why
back
was
then.
that? That just culture.
Culture wasn't the done thing. And if anything, they almost had to walk like on opposite sides of the road. So, I mean, I'm trying to think. My dad is next month actually. They're both, their birthdays in June, and
Yes.
He's going to be 93.
Yeah. I mean, we'll probably come on to this later, but you do have a partner who I do know well. And the idea of you both being on opposite side of the road and screaming across the road to each other, sort of not a picture I can imagine.
Actually, sometimes probably. Just go inside the road now. Because I think with living and working together as well, running our business together, that's a juggling act, So yeah, when things, I mean, he's super laid back, as you know. And that just drives me crazy.
So from the years 1 to 10, AnnSee, a story that comes to your mind almost immediately that left an impression on
you? One that always comes to mind, actually 2 of them, but they both involve my grandmother.
Great.
So is it paternal grandmother, my dad's mom?
Yes.
Yeah, so she used to live with us when I was growing up, and my parents, my dad worked obviously, and my mum also, after having me for a while, she actually went back and to do some work. So it was my grandmother that I spent a lot of my time with. And I always remember, so she, because we're Malaysian, and she used to wear sarong, and it literally was this big piece of cloth stitched down one side, and it's like a tube. You stand in it and you fold it over and you roll it over like a towel. And I always remember every day around about 5:30ish, when my mum and dad would be coming home, she would sit on the doorstep and I would sit in her sarong like a swing. And wait for mum and dad to come home. So yeah, so that, to me,
a happy memory.
Yeah.
And you say there was another story. Would that be on the same vein, or?
Yes, and it was also involving my grandmother, and I think because in Malaysia it's a hot country, so it's quite normal to have an afternoon nap, like a siesta, and so I don't know why. I assume that's probably why, but we had a cot, but the cots we have in the Far East is not like the baby cots that you have here, which are quite deep and with a high, outer thing. But with the one that we had, it wasn't as high, and it was almost like a double cot. It was really quite big. And we had one in my grandmother's room. So all I remember was the memory involved me being in the cot and supposedly to have a nap, because my grandmother wanted a nap, and I would just think she's asleep, and I just wanted to annoy her. And I would take my little toys and just throw them at kind of and then pretend to be asleep, And it's really funny because my other half now tells me, he goes, "You can be so annoying sometimes." It's probably from there.
And what age would that be, AnnSee?
Preschool. So even it would be pre-nursery, even.
Okay.
4, 3.
Yeah.
The cot was probably younger than that.
Yeah. And so, keeping on that theme, then, what were you like at school between those years, 1 and 10? Probably your first school. Yeah.
I don't remember much of nursery.
Right.
But kindergarten, I hated going to school. I really hated going to school. And I remember like with kindergarten, I was wearing glasses by then, and I would like forget my glasses. So we'd turn up at school and my mum would say like, okay, get out. And I'll be like, oh, I can't, because I can't see the blackboard.
Yeah.
And I would do all sorts. And then primary school, it took my mum, you know, the first day at school, and most children are quite, apprehensive. And she would take my hand and walk me up to my classroom. And she had to do that for weeks.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't let her go.
Right.
And then after that, I would forget my shoes, so I would turn up at school and I said, well, I can't get out. I forgot my shoes. I forgot my glasses, so it's like excuses to not
I was
go
going
to
to
school.
say excuses rather than, forgetfulness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you say that they made an impression on you? Did you learn anything from that you might use now?
What, from those experiences?
Those experiences, what lesson did they teach you, do you think? Or none?
So for me, saying that they were probably excuses is more of a revelation now. I really, there are aspects of school that I enjoy, obviously, and the friends that I've made over the years. But there is a side of me now, and I don't have children, so it's it's a different perspective, I guess. Maybe I would think differently if I did have children, but I really believe that there are other ways of educating children, and that school is not the only option. Because I love learning. I absolutely love learning. I believe that to continue to grow, we need to learn.
Yes.
But I just don't always think that school is the right way. And when I hear of friends who are homeschooling, etc., and I think, good on you for doing that. I know it's harder, but I think there are just different ways. People we learn differently, we behave differently. So
funnily enough, AnnSee, and this has just popped into my head.
Yeah.
But is that an opportunity for you to then start working with families and children with what you do, or do you do that already?
No, I don't. I mean, I've kind of stayed away, even with the yoga and fitness stuff that I do. I don't teach children necessarily. And I think it's because I specifically don't, I just think, like, because I haven't had children, I'm not in the right place to, it's not my place to do that.
That's fine.
But I do advocate now. I just feel that people need to look at more options, and there are more options in the UK, unlike in Malaysia.
Right.
So there's a cultural expectation there that is different, and that's something that I haven't gone with the norm.
No.
I've always kind of just done what I wanted to do, apart from school.
Yeah. And so 11 to 20, perhaps you must have a story in the early teens, and then perhaps a story in the late teens that really made an impression on you.
In my early teens, I funnily enough, as a child, so preteen, wasn't particularly active. I didn't really like team sports and things like that. I had issues, like I was really fussy with my food and eating. But then in my early teens, I say dragged. Wasn't really dragged.
No.
So I went to a convent school in Malaysia. So it's an all girls school.
Yes.
And there was an all boys school, like our brother's school across the road. And a friend of mine wanted to go along to the boys' school to do some martial arts. And this extracurricular activity was on a Saturday. afternoon. And so she asked me if I would go along with her. And I just thought, oh, why not?
Yep.
So I did. She ended up just using that time to go off to the cinema with boys. And and I stayed to the point that I actually got accepted onto the Malaysian team for the Seoul Olympics.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Um, but through that exercise, physical activity, that sport, I then started to play more sports. I found out that I'm not really a team sport player. I'm more of an individual sport player. And my appetite went through the roof. So I just ate I went from a very fussy eater to eating anything and everything that I was fed. So that for me was a key thing in my early teens.
And if I could just interject there again, AnnSee, because this is a theme that I find coming up all the time, is that our lives are very much almost decided by deciding on one particular day at one particular time, yes or no. Mm-hmm. If you'd have decided not to go along that day and found martial arts, if you'd have decided maybe to say, no, I'll see you tomorrow, then your life, how much difference that would have made to your life, that one decision to go along that day. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no, I think I do think that a lot. Like, that's every single decision that we make on a daily basis. So we are where we are today based on the decisions we've made in the past. And then, the decisions we make today will determine where we are. But if you can pull that back further, it's really the thought behind the decision. That's key, because if you didn't have that thought, you wouldn't have made those decisions.
Absolutely.
So there's that, which I really do believe, but then I also believe what my yoga teacher said, is that our life, human life, it's like this amazing tapestry that, unfortunately, because of the human condition, we tend to just look at the underneath, the backside of it, where it looks really messy.
Right.
But actually, every single thread is there for a reason.
Yeah.
And when you flip it over, this is an amazing pattern. So our lives are predetermined. So if we believe that our lives are predetermined, then maybe any decision that we make will still lead us to where we are today.
Interesting.
I don't know.
No, thanks. That's interesting. So late teens, AnnSee. Who was the AnnSee of 18, 19, 20?
Oh, I was in the UK by then. So I did my O-level equivalent when I was 17. And my best friend at the time had already come to the UK. And I think because I've always had this slightly rebellious side of wanting to do what I wanted to do. So because she was in the UK, I wanted to come to the UK. And my brother had also been to the UK to study. So, that's what I wanted. And so I applied to numerous schools, and then moved up to North Yorkshire to do my A-levels.
Right.
So,
Whereabouts? Whereabouts in Yorkshire?
I chose to go to Giggleswick School.
That's correct. Yeah. What a name that is.
I know, I loved it. But it was, I chose it for a couple of reasons, because I wanted to start in January, which is when the academic year starts in Malaysia.
Yes.
But a lot of schools wanted me to wait till September, but I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I got offered 2 main schools, one in Kent, and one in North Yorkshire. And the one in Kent was a much bigger school, and they put all the overseas students together in the same boarding house, which I didn't want.
No.
And then Giggleswick was a much smaller school. It's it looked beautiful, and so I decided to go there.
Definitely, I have seen the picture that you sent through of Giggleswick, and it was Harry Potterish. definitely from the outside.
It's stunning. It's
Yeah,
absolutely stunning.
yeah.
Mm.
It's in the countryside as well, isn't it? It's not as if it's
Yes.
stuck in the middle of town.
No.
Great.
No.
And again, so again, I think you've already spoken about that decision showing a little bit of your rebellious, not rebellious side, but wanting to do what you want to do.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
actually, now just thinking about it, when you asked me about like primary school, like when I was a child, and I think, okay, like being forced to go to school and things. So, that was why maybe I'm the way I am, because at the time I was forced to do something that I really didn't want to do.
Yes.
And so where possible these days, I live my life. Yeah, the way I want to live my life.
Well, either you are very lucky or Kim is very lucky, because I often say the reason I'm single is because all the way through my life I've wanted to do what I've wanted to do, and I've found it really, really difficult to live with someone with that attitude. And I have to put my hands up and say the three people that I've lived with have found me even more difficult than I found them. So I am single, but that is the reason I've always wanted. If I had a letter tomorrow saying, we would like to interview you for a job in Malaysia, I'd be really, really interested in going.
Yeah.
Now, it may be that my partner wouldn't be. And I'd still be really, really interested in going. So I think I understand where you're coming from. So now we're in your 20s.
Yeah.
20 to 30, stories and lessons.
20 to 30, so many stories, Ernie.
Pick the two most important.
20s to 30s, I ended up, well, no, actually, I'm just trying to think. I got married and I didn't get divorced in my 20s. So that's a lie. But I did get married in my 20s. But the key thing was I ended up in the fitness industry. For me.
Okay.
By accident. Well, you say by accident, but maybe it's all predetermined, right?
Yes. Well, let's go through that. So you talk about being married. I know that that's a different man to Kim.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about how it started, how it finished?
We met at university when I was doing my undergrad. And then when I did my master's, he got a job in Germany, what was the eastern part of Germany, right? What was East Berlin. And, asked me to go over. So we had a house in Sheffield, and, he said, so we got married after I got my master's, and he said, so why didn't you come over? And we didn't. So we got a house in Sheffield. I chose not to go over because I'd been over to Germany, to be fair, only a handful of times, but they weren't always necessarily the most pleasant experience, not being white. And so we just attempted a long distance relationship. And it just, when you're young, it just really didn't work. And it was all very amicable. And we've kept in touch since. And which is why I was going to say to you, we didn't actually get divorced till my 40s.
Wow.
Late 30s, 40s. It was a long time till he'd moved around, and then he was with somebody, and they were expecting their first child.
Right.
Actually, I was probably my late 30s when he said to he messaged me and says, I think we need to get divorced now. I've got a child on the way. So I just did it myself, the divorce. I just filled the papers in because we didn't have anything, property or anything left.
No.
So it was a self, whatever it is, divorce.
Great. Yeah. And then you went into the fitness industry.
Yeah, I ended up in the fitness industry. I had no intentions of being in the fitness industry, really, I didn't even know what I wanted, and this is why I say to you, maybe there is a path that's predetermined for us. So all I knew was I enjoyed sport, like martial arts, and at university I played women's rugby, I played squash,
Right.
and I didn't want to. I then did a degree, and then didn't want to go back to Malaysia, so I applied to do a master's in sports science, which is what I love. Um, got a place, stayed on to do that. Still didn't want to go back to Malaysia because at the time, this is like 1990, 91,
Yes. Yes.
sports science or anything like that in the Far East was just non-existent.
Right.
So I just realized that the opportunities were better here in this country. And even then in the early 90s, sports science was like, what's that?
Yes.
So I wanted to stay on. And then there was I was thinking about this the other day. I applied to do this program in Sheffield. I can't remember what it's called, but it was run by a gentleman called, I think his name was Trevor, and he played for Sheffield United football
Right.
years ago. And it was a sport type program wanting to do with leadership and coaching, but for people of color in Sheffield.
Right.
And so I was accepted onto that. I kind of did that, and then ended up with a job at the Sheffield City Council at a fitness facility.
Yeah.
And then went along to a first fitness convention, made some friends, and then,
Yes.
long story short, got offered a job in the fitness industry. So
Right. And was that at a gym, or was that that wasn't with Les Mills straight away?
not yet, no.
No.
So this was pre-Les Mills. So Les Mills wasn't even in the country
Right.
yet. So I went along to this fitness convention, made a couple of friends who were presenting and delivering training in the industry at the time. I was teaching fitness classes
Yes.
by then. And then there was a fitness organization. So there were literally just two in the UK at the time that provided training for instructors.
Right.
And so my friend said, oh, why don't you have a word with, this organization? I did, and they offered me a role as their education director.
Right.
Because at the time in the fitness industry, people didn't even have a degree, and I had a
Oh,
master's.
yes.
So, so they were like, yeah, you got a job, So that's how I got the job. And then it wasn't, Les Mills didn't come for till much
Right.
later on.
Okay. Yeah. So we're in the sort of late 20s, close to your 30s, AnnSee, 30 to 40.
30 to 40. Oh, 30 to 40, I reckon I did a lot of learning.
Yeah.
So in my late 20s, moving into my 30s, actually even before that. So I carried on with my yoga training. I also discovered the world of personal development.
Right.
So really through my 30s, I attended pretty much all of the Tony Robbins courses.
Yeah.
From his 4-day event to flying to the US to doing all his events,
Right.
So I did a lot of that. I did my NLP train the trainer training. I did public speaking training. I did a lot of that stuff whilst I was lecturing full time at the university. So there was a lot of, I think, personal growth. I don't think it happened then. I think there were seeds that were planted and that I'm reaping the benefits of now, or probably in the last 10 years of my life.
Yes.
Because I kind of did, like, just threw myself in it.
Yeah.
So that when it all came to an end, I was like, I'm never doing a single course ever again in my life.
No.
Because it was just too much,
Yeah.
I was just learning. And I just found that whilst I enjoyed learning, I didn't have the time to apply what I was learning.
Right.
And and it's not like learn how to do a mathematical calculation that you can just apply, this is about you as a person.
Yeah, as you say, it's ongoing, isn't it? Once you start, it's ongoing then.
Absolutely.
And did that How did that affect your social life at the time? Were you outgoing in that period while you were learning, or?
No, I literally, I also suffered burnout during
Right,
that time
right,
because in my 20s, in my 30s, I was lecturing full time
yes,
for part of it. Um, I was teaching classes in the evenings, and at the weekends, I was either traveling somewhere in the country or somewhere abroad to deliver training, or I was learning, I was on a course.
yes, yeah,
So I was literally burning the candle at both ends. Did I go out? I'm not, I'm a very happy introvert
yeah, absolutely.
anyway. So I like my own company. I really do, you
Yeah,
know? So, um, yeah, so I've never been a big going out partying kind of person.
okay,
But during that time, I was literally teaching almost every evening. So my social life was at a health club,
yes, yeah,
teaching classes. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Having been in the fitness industry myself now for many years, there are an awful lot of people who see the same situation as you. They are fitness trainers, but with the best one in the world, I know that fitness clubs do not pay the best salaries. So
No.
you have to do 4, 5, 6 sessions a day, or you have to travel from club to club to club to club to really make anything of a living. So I can understand where you're coming from on that.
Mm.
And if a young fitness instructor came up to you now, 18, 19, 20, 21, is there any advice you give her that you have maybe picked up now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I say this to people all the time, you know, don't put all your eggs in one basket. You need to, you know, it's an industry that if you are just doing that, especially, I'm not talking so much about personal trainers, but even you can apply it across to personal training. But if you're teaching group classes, most times we do it because we absolutely love it.
Yes,
We love doing it. But the pay in this country is the same today as it was 25, 30 years ago
absolutely.
when I first started.
Yeah,
And so, you know, it took me a while to kind of really realize and recognize the fact that I had a full-time job. So I had different streams of income already,
right.
you know, but it's an industry that you can burn out from. And I find it so heartbreaking when I see, especially this last year, um, that people are putting down, you know, on their social media that, you know, after 20 years of teaching, that they're giving up
Yes,
and
yes,
they're just getting a proper job, you know. And I just think I don't think you need to have a full-time job or even a part-time job and do fitness.
right.
Um, but because you should be doing stuff you love doing. You know, you
Yes.
gotta, I've always believed that. So, you know, so be smart about it.
Uh huh.
And, you know, that's one reason, like, so Arbonne is not my first network marketing company.
No.
I was with a network marketing company before, roundabout in my 30s, but I didn't really get it.
Right.
I didn't really get it. But it gave me a good basis to now recognize why, you know, and how the industry works.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I just think you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket.
No.
I've been around too long
Uh-huh.
to see people struggle.
Absolutely.
Mental health, physical health.
Yeah.
It can be quite a harsh industry in terms of how you're judged with how you look as
Yes.
well. So, you know, so it's so important. And when they're done with you, they're kind of done with you, and they'll
Yeah.
grab the next young
Yes.
keen person. And yeah, you got to create a brand for yourself,
Uh
and
huh.
you've got to think about you know, creating different tools and different
And
tranches of income.
do you think that I would say probably those opportunities have grown now, haven't they? You know, you can still do MLM, but now with the internet, you can do
So
branding,
many,
you can do so many more things, can't you?
so many more things. And with online now, you can have digital courses, digital assets that you can sell
Yeah.
as well. You can have your videos online that people can purchase.
Yes.
There's so much more.
Uh-huh.
But I just think that they need to be smart, because you only have one body, and depending on how intense the type of classes you like to teach, the stuff, then
Absolutely.
your body takes a toll
Yes.
long term on your body. So they've got to just start looking at different things, and the different things then there should be an underlying thread that stitches them all together.
Right. Yes.
And it comes down to you and your values as a person. So even if you're teaching for clubs, or you're teaching Les Mills classes in clubs, you are still a brand.
Yes.
And it's about getting people to follow you based on your beliefs.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So yeah.
And then, what you find then often is that perhaps when you leave the club, or even when you leave Les Mills, there will be a set number of people who, if you say, I've set up on my own, they will follow you, won't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I really believe you shouldn't burn your bridges, because
No.
you never know. And I just think, you can still, I think the world is too small, and it's even smaller these days. There's
Yes.
no point, upsetting people and, tarnishing people's names, because you never know who you're going to meet in the future. You never know who you might need help from in the future.
Absolutely.
So just have integrity, and leave. If you're going to leave, then leave with, in a good good stead, not
Yeah.
to basically piss people off.
Right. So 40 to 50, AnnSee, the last couple of years.
40 to 50. So the main story was really meeting my other half, right?
Yes.
So so we never, I wasn't looking for anything, he wasn't looking for anything, and we met through business networking, and it just really, and this is sometimes, I think, when going back to that analogy, if your life is predetermined,
Yes.
it's like sometimes if you're trying too hard with anything, with career, with work, with relationships, if you're trying too hard to find something or get something, it doesn't happen.
Right.
And then when you finally let go and you go, and you just be, then I believe, then if it's meant to be, it will appear.
Uh-huh.
In some ways. So we kind of met, and so because of that, I moved down to the Southwest.
Yes.
I can't believe we've been together for this long now. So we met, where are we now? 11 years ago.
Right.
Nearly.
Was it an initial attraction, or did it take time to develop?
Do you know, it's really funny. So we met at like a business networking Christmas party.
Ah, right.
And it was a foreign Christmas party that we met.
Yeah.
And there was another guy at the meeting who was a personal trainer, and who asked Kim to introduce us.
Right.
Which he did. And I couldn't get rid of this guy all night. And I kind of like didn't forgive Kim for it.
Yeah.
But I don't think I say it's not not an initial,
Yes.
thing, but we kept in touch. And I didn't know this at the time, but on the day we met, which was the Christmas party day, was also his birthday, and he'd also been to the hospital for scan. And then in early January, they found out that he needed open heart surgery.
Yes.
So, and that was when, like, when I got the message from him, I just literally burst out crying.
Uh-huh.
In tears, and I'm like, what is this all about? Because I was in a relationship, he was in a relationship, and we weren't, I wasn't, we got on really well, and that was it. There was nothing more. But when he said that he needed open heart surgery, I just like, yeah, I just
There you go.
bawled. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, then now 10 years on or so, we're still together.
Smashing. Great. And what do you think of the next 5 years, AnnSee? Where do you see it going?
Well, the next 5 years of my life,
Yeah.
it's taken me a long time. So like you say, all the decisions that you make lead you to where you are.
Yes.
And if I take that concept and the concept of the tapestry, where life is predetermined, that this, your life is this amazing, beautiful design that has already been created, then I would say that the decisions I've made in the last 10 years, really since being with Kim,
Yes.
and it was only then that I made the decision to step in
Right.
to fully into the world of yoga
Yes.
and to step into me fully, and kind of embrace that, that there is that I'm meant to be here for a reason. And so we put out a mission. I put out a mission to the teachers that I've trained, etc., and to on my social media, that over the next 3 years we want to touch 1 million lives with yoga.
Yes.
Because I think that yoga has just been corrupted and misappropriated in some ways because of social media channels like Instagram, where people just think yoga is just about touching your toes and that kind of thing. Whereas for me, yoga is really about mindset. It is about personal mastery. It is about, which is why I did personal development. Tony Robbins talks about personal mastery. And to me, yoga is like the original form of personal mastery there is.
Right. Yeah.
And I need more people to believe that. And
two questions from that then, AnnSee. First of all, you stepped into the world of yoga, but you also, from the sound of it, you stepped into the world of being comfortable with another man in the same building, where you probably got to compromise. Is that right?
Did I what compromised?
Yeah. You've stepped into a world with another man now for 11 years, which must have made, whereas when you were young, you wanted to live your life. I take it now you've compromised a little. And oh no. Okay.
No, I will say that if I look back at the key relationships that I've had, after my marriage, one of them, we were at a Tony Robbins event in America, and we sat on a beach, and he was talking about the 6 human needs, and we realized that our needs were completely opposite to each other at the time. And so we amicably split, and we're still in touch today, absolutely still in touch today. We've done business together and lots of other things. Because, I just can't imagine that you've had a relationship with someone for a long time. You must have liked them at some point.
Absolutely.
You must have some things in common. So why end up hating them? I just don't get it.
I agree.
And then, so our needs were very different. So we decided to walk away from each other. And they were right at the time. Then the other significant relationship I had was with someone who was extremely controlling. And that then didn't really work for me. So even though this person really wanted me to be, to step up into the limelight, it was almost like in his way, as opposed to in my way. So what I realized, and I still believe it now, is, I don't know if you know the 6 human needs for Tony Robbins, but the 2 for me that are the top 2 is the need for certainty, and then there's the need for uncertainty,
right,
and which is variety.
Yin and yang.
So yeah, which is difficult when it comes and for a relationship,
Yeah.
because if you want a steadiness of a relationship, but then you don't. Do you see what I mean? It's a real massive conflict, right? It's a real conflict, and so, so with Kim, I got that because he's so
Yeah.
steady
Yeah.
and so reliable and all of that, and then I've got that loyalty in that sense. But I haven't got a clue what's going to come out of his mouth every time he opens it. And
Yeah.
so it's almost like, and I think it's because he's a little bit older, he's always said to me, look, you need to step into you.
Yeah.
And to have that, to know that you've got that support, but then be allowed to do what I want to do. Do you see what I mean? It's kind of, so it's like those two needs are kind of met in the relationship, whereas they weren't before.
Oh, that's lovely.
So,
And we're coming to the end now. It's been really wonderful talking to you. But one more thing, you're talking about patterns.
About what? Sorry?
You talked about patterns, threads.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are the patterns on your arms?
Oh, so this was just a design that I've had this since my 20s, I think. It was just a design it's a freestyle design.
Yeah.
I wanted it to wrap around my arm. But I've got on my right thigh a massive Maori tattoo.
Wow.
Now that is special.
I won't ask if we can see it.
Oh, not here now. I might give you a photograph. But Maori tattoos are meant to symbolize your life at that point, that moment in time. And so I had that done in New Zealand by a traditional Maori artist. And that is me, so.
AnnSee, it's been fascinating.
Oh, thank you so much.
Don't dash away.
Thank you so much. Where
can people get in touch with you, AnnSee?
So my website is AnnSee.life. So that's my website. And my name, AnnSee Yeoh, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter.
Great. Thank you very much. It's been fascinating.
Thank you.
And we've proved that your story is not going to stagnate. It is ongoing.
Absolutely.
Don't dash off. When I stop the recording, we'll have a moment and then. Thanks very much, AnnSee. Take care.
Thank you.